72 Bassmaster Classic. We gathered all of our fishermen in Memphis, Tennessee for our flight to the Mystery Lake. And boy, let me tell you one thing, it was one more big, continuous guessing game as to where we were headed. Bobby Murray, you won the Classic last year. Let me ask you this question. You got it all figured out where we're headed this year?
I sure don't. I wish I knew.
You really do know, don't you?
Well, I've got my ideas, but I don't really know.
Where do you think we might be headed?
Oh, we might be going to the northeast or the southwest. That's as close as I got.
That covers half of America. Stan Sloan's over here from Nashville. Where do you think we're going, Stan?
Far west.
Where do you think far? How far west?
Too far.
Well, that's some real good fishing, you know, right close by here.
I'd rather stay close by.
All right. Glenn Wells, where do you think we're headed?
Mexico.
Mexico. John Powell?
I think we're going to Amstead.
Amstead. Where is Amstead?
That's Del Rio, Texas.
How you think?
Beaver Lake.
Beaver Lake. Where are you from, by the way?
Beaver Lake.
All right. You know, when you take the top 24 fishermen from 6 qualifying tournaments across the country, they certainly represent the toughest and the strongest of any 24 fishermen you might imagine. But I'll tell you one thing, the nerves were just about like a bucket of spaghetti. These guys were nervous because they had no idea where they were headed. And they, of course, had guessed everywhere in the world, and security had to be tight to keep them from knowing. We even took Forrest Wood, the manufacturer of the great Ranger boat, and also Blake Honeycutt, who designed and manufactured the trailer, and put these men in jail. And here we were releasing them for the first time in 3 days so they could enter the airplane and head for the Mystery Lake. And as I say, nerves were on the ragged edge, and these boys were wondering just what type water and where they might be headed. Here we are with the second annual Bassmaster Classic. Today we're headed for a destination I know all of you have been wondering about, but not known. This tournament, unlike last year, is the first time that not one single solitary soul has guessed the location. Now, the men I'm looking at here, plus one or two I saw in the front of the cabin, actually drove by the lake or flew over the lake, coming to Memphis for the rendezvous. Now, folks, we're headed north. Actually northeast of Memphis. You can almost hear the guitars and the cowboys singing because we're headed for Nashville, Tennessee. Now, the lake that you're probably wondering about, there are several good lakes. And I know you want to know that Old Hickory is just north of town, but we're not going there. We're going to Percy Priest. All of the boats, 28 boats, Ranger boats, all loaded down, snuck through Memphis 2 nights ago at 12:45 and snuck into Nashville in a great big warehouse. They went by Stan Sloan's house. His lights were out, so we knew he was asleep. Yes? You know, it's hard to imagine the many hours that went in Bass headquarters in planning and preparing for this boat. We used, of course, the Ranger boat with a heavy-duty tournament hull, and we're very careful to have it rigged out by the various companies that made the various implements. We were careful to have the new 850 Mercury, which is the unit that's come out in 1973, and of course added to that unit the real fine and efficient power trim unit. This gave us a real fine action for the entire tournament. We also had here Rogers Moore from Tulsa, who is the head engineer with Lawrence Electronics, placing the transducer units on each of these boats very carefully so they would work with 100% efficiency. And we had that, of course, and we also added to this unit the real fine super motor guide by the Hershey Clock people in Starkville, Mississippi. This is probably the most popular of all of the foot-operated units, and it's been found to be very popular among all the tournament fishermen. Incidentally, these units, including the Bill Powell Prothrone and the accessories that were furnished to us very graciously by people at Fomac, the boats worked perfectly. Even the trailer that was used, which was the trailer by Everglades, worked very efficiently and gave us a total unit that was just great. And I might add, the units were sold to all of the Bass members that wanted them, and as soon as the tournament was over, these things sold out in less than 2 hours. And we hope to do the same thing next year for any Bass members that should be interested in one of these super rigs.
The only other person that knew the whereabouts of the Classic was Bob Whitt, the great outdoor writer with the Nashville Banner. And I'll say the Chamber of Commerce people in Nashville made us feel as warmly welcome as we've ever felt before. 4:30 comes mighty early for a tired bunch of fishermen, and each morning they gathered here in the lobby of the Hilton Airport Inn, making themselves ready with that first cup of coffee and the bus ride out to the Four Corners Marina on Percy Priest Lake.
Yes. Roll, you got it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The first crack of dawn greets us with real cloudy, overcast day, but the enthusiasm of these fishermen is tremendously high as they're ready to prepare themselves for a fight for a $10,000 first prize. You can't believe the importance of making good those first 8 hours and the only 8 hours of practice these men will have. They have to somehow put a pattern on the bass and just find out where in this strange new lake the fish might be hiding out. They'll be fishing spinner baits, they'll be fishing plastic worms, diving baits, and a multitude of different rigs and baits that they've come up with to try to break the code of this great lake. They'll be using, as Don Butler is here, the Lowrance electronics, studying the depth of the water, trying to find a pattern. Fishing hard and under pressure is Bill Dance of Memphis, Tennessee, as is Pete Nasser of Vicksburg, Mississippi. Here studying and located is B.J. Woods from Jasper, Texas. Here's Bobby Murray, tremendous fisherman in our last year's run-up. John Powell in the front of his boat in a perched position ready to strike in shallow water worm fishing. Most of the fellows are in now to practice round, so let's have a talk with Billy Westmoreland from Salina, Tennessee. Well, let me ask you this question. You think you can find the fish, or are you concerned about it?
I believe I can find it.
Well, you know, there's a lot of folks around here think you got a big advantage because you live in Tennessee, but what do you think?
First time I've ever been on the lake.
Well, here we are at the end of the warm-up day. And the warm-up day it's really been with temperatures falling from about 50 degrees this morning to the present temperature of about 41 degrees. But that's the way it should be, I guess, for the first day. These men are finding conditions rather tough, but they are catching some fish. I can look at the twinkle in the eye of some of the old-timers and tell that they are catching fish, and that I believe if my judgment is right, tomorrow morning, beginning of the tournament, we'll see a lot broader smile as they take off and a hit for their secret hole that they hopefully found today. Well, this is serious business. The first real day of the 3-day competition, and these men are under tremendous pressure for that first prize of $10,000. These men are fishing on a great strange, and they are trying their best now to put together a successful pattern based on the first 8 hours of practice the previous day. B.J. Woods here from Jasper, Texas, managing to get his lure off, one he purchased for $15 during the practice session. He's mighty proud of that lure and is not about to lose it. Here comes a smallmouth, a beautiful smallmouth by Guy McCarty of Texas. Here's Ricky Green of Arkadelphia, Arkansas, working in the area. Well, it looks like sort of a light catch for the first day, but the fish are coming in well. Here's a tremendous string of fish by Ricky Green of Arkadelphia, Arkansas. And these fish hit the scales at 15 pounds and 12 ounces. Also, Bobby Murray came right behind him with a nice string of fish, but they're quite a ways short of Ricky Green's catch. Well, your big fish weighed 414.
What, $500?
What'd you catch the bass on?
I caught both of them on Big O. First pounder threw one live.
What is this Big O?
Somebody makes in Tennessee.
Y'all know what a Big O is?
Oh, but that's worth $500.
Now, what does a Big O look like?
Real fast hot spot with a lip on it.
A fat hot spot with a lip on it.
And it's just like throwing a pork chop when you're trying to catch it.
It flies on it. It sails.
It does that.
Well, they're all in for the first day. And our leader, Ricky Green from Arkadelphia, Arkansas, brought in 10 bass, all alive, weighed a total of 15 pounds and 12 ounces. Following Ricky Green is Doug Howard of Alabama and Jim Finley from Missouri. The day was a real bad, crusty day with a lot of heavy overcast. The water sort of choppy, and the boys didn't have a good pattern on the bass. I think the way it is now, it should be very interesting the next 2 days, particularly if the weather breaks and these boys can find a pattern to be working. It should be wide open. Every bass today, fortunately, for the first time, was brought in alive, and they will be released out of the tank tonight to swim back in Percy Priest Reservoir. So we'll see what happens tomorrow and the third day. Well, old Stan Sloan really caught a nice fish today. This bass weighed 5 pounds and 12 ounces and looks like one more fine fish for Percy Priest Lake. Stan's got a big smile on his face as we prepare the bass to put in the live tank.
Where you want to get?
Well, looks like to me, unless my eyes are failing me, Don Butler of Tulsa, Oklahoma has one more fine stringer of bass. We'll only know in a minute. Don, get up here now. Hi. We got 20 pounds and 4 ounces, ladies and gentlemen. That's a new leader. Let's give it out there. 20 pounds and 4 ounces. They're all alive. Let's get them in a tank.
Well, I did the same thing today I did yesterday, only I had a helping hand from up above, I think. I caught 19 fish yesterday and about the same number today. It just turned out today they were larger.
Well, today wound up the second day and a much better catch than the first day. We had good bright sky and boys had a much better day than we had yesterday. The scoreboard, of course, indicates that we have a new leader, Don Butler of Tulsa, Oklahoma, who came in with a tremendous bunch of fish, 20 pounds and 14 ounces to be exact, moving him up to a total of 23 pounds and 13 ounces, and just a pound and 13 ounces above yesterday's leader, Ricky Green. So it's going down to the wire. It looks like tomorrow, our final day, and it'll be real interesting to see just how those boys up at the top manage to hold on and just what happens in the shakeup. So we'll see tomorrow what happens. Well, here's what happened. Nothing but heavy rain.
Father, we ask you to look after every man here and accept our thanks for safety during the first 2 days. And we go out and have a good fishing day and return home safely in Jesus' name. Amen. Gentlemen, crank up your engines.
Don Butler is out in front by a measly 1 pound and 13 ounces. He's ahead of Ricky Green, who is really breathing on his neck. Actually, any number of these fellows could catch up with a big stringer of fish, but we believe here that the best 2 contenders for the moment happen to be Ricky Green and Don Butler. So let's follow these fellows for a few minutes as the pressure is really put on the fish. Joe Wilson of Hot Springs, Arkansas, and Tom Mann of Eufaula, Alabama, both make tremendous charges toward the lead. But it seems like too late for them, as Don Butler keeps catching fish all throughout the 3rd day. Butler boats a another pretty bass, and it looks like, as I suspected, he's using that little chartreuse hokey bug that he developed some years ago. It's now become famous. Jim Finley of Missouri comes in with a tremendous stringer fish this last day, making a charge toward Butler. But I'll tell you, it looks like to me he's got to have at least 20 pounds to stay in contention. And there goes Ricky Green, a great little fisherman, but he's had a real tough day. Finley really needs a weight here. We'll find out in just a second how this thing looks. Let's see what he did for the day. Looks like 12.5 pounds, not enough. Not enough to do the job. Don Butler, on the other hand, came up with over 14 pounds of bass, and to me it looks like we might have our man.
Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of you have been following the Bass Angler Sportsman Society's tournament trail for the last 2 years. And last year, our first classic was won in Las Vegas, Nevada on Lake Mead by real fine fisherman Bobby Murray. I'm asking him to bring the champion's trophy out here that will be presented to the man that won, Bobby Murray. Let's give Bobby a nice hand. Bobby, you remember the thrill last year, don't you, buddy?
The biggest thrill of my life. This is what it's all about, and I'm sure. You know, it's a great honor just to be one of the 24, but to win something like this is just a dream of a lifetime.
The man that won this tournament today, the 1972 Bassmaster Classic, was a man that stood behind me when I didn't have a friend in the world that thought I could pull this society together back in 1967. When we started the organization, it was in Tulsa, Oklahoma on a cold day. He said, I believe it'll work, and he joined that same day, was the first member of the Bass Angler Sportsman Society. I think it's very fitting that he should win this classic, the most prestigious of all fishing tournaments. It's a pleasure to call him out here now to accept this trophy and this check for $10,000 cash. It goes to a man who deserves it beyond any stretch of your imagination. Don Butler of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Don, tell us very briefly the pattern. I know we don't have much time here, but tell these folks that are here exactly what you caught the fish on and the depth of the water.
Ray, I don't think there really was that much of a pattern. There was a concentration of fish in the back of the creek. I think they call it Fate Marina, the little neck that it's in. And we went to the back end of it, and there was a lot of fish in there. They weren't difficult to catch. They were hitting the small spinner baits. And chartreuse seemed to work the best. We caught our first fish on that, and well, naturally we stayed with it. And the fish didn't run as large today, and we didn't get them as quickly, but we stayed in there all day long and got 8, and then came out to 2 other little spots and got the other 2. So the area had some big fish in it that we left there, so I think if you're planning a fishing trip, that'd be a good place to consider.
But Don, one other thing I'd like to ask you, I know this is quite a thrill. You fish these tournaments, and perhaps you fish as many or more than anyone else. Did you ever think when you got on that plane in Memphis that, first of all, that you'd be going to, of all places, Nashville, Tennessee, and Percy Priest, but did you have to think have any feelings that you might win this tournament?
I never entertained the thought for one moment.
Don, your little wife, Lucia, had been nervously waiting on the bank all day for you, and she knew you wouldn't leave by about a pound and just a few ounces. And I asked her, I said, if Don wins, I said, how you plan on spending his money? And she said she would sure hope that she could talk you into taking her to Hawaii for y'all's 20th anniversary. What do you think about that?
That would have been 2 years ago.